it might even be worth saying that the compassion model, maybe not so much as a system in terms of actually legislation and putting in place policies for that, but just from an individual perspective, it's difficult to have compassion for someone who's directly negatively influencing your life. And I remember this when I first became interested in this. We had a family member of ours stay with my direct family, and he'd been in and out of rehab his whole life. And the decisions that because I'm just seeing this happen in real time. I'm young. I'm just interested in making the AFL. I know nothing about emotional trauma. I know nothing about social circumstances and the need for hope and goals, like you said, the purpose and all that. And I'm seeing him make these decisions around the home, and I'm feeling resentment start to build, and I'm noticing, to your point, that the anslinger in me, just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, how could you forget that? Why would you go there? Like, why would you drink again? Like, all this, why do you want me to drive you here? Like, it's just like, get out of my way sort of thing, And I feel like anger and resentment, it's easy to be angry and it's easy to be resentful. It's very, very hard, unless I'm just I'm an exception to the rule here. It's hard for me to look, unless I know, at someone like that and go, damn, like, what happened to you,
Yeah, the reason we get angry, this isn't just with this kind of situation, but any situation, is because anger gives us a sense of control. Like, we're in situations where we feel out of control, a lot of people will revert to anger because it gives us some sort of sense of power and control back into a situation that we don't fully understand. Now, if like people who are listening to this and take an interest in these kind of topics, they can consciously then start to change their ideas and move from a judgment to a compassion kind of model. But someone like what you were saying when you were younger growing up, that's just these group beliefs kind of being indoctrinated. And what you're doing, you're just seeing a behavior and you're going, fuck that behavior. That behavior is shit house. And it is, right? That's the thing. We can't get caught up. I mean, I've done a full course on families of addicts, and it's like trying to help people understand. So you don't let someone, you don't excuse the behavior. Yeah, if the behavior is shit house, the behavior is shit house, and you set boundaries. But you need to understand why the behavior is there. You need to understand what's underneath it, and it is the hardest with addicts, right? Because what happens. I'm yet to meet an addict, right? Yet I've met, my God, thousands. I've yet to meet one who isn't riddled with guilt and shame around what they're doing. Yeah. So what happens? The more guilt and shame that we have, a lot of the time, the more of a mask we put up of I don't give a shit, right? And I've met people and their mask has been so strong. I don't give a fuck about anything. It doesn't take me long. There's guilt and shame riddled underneath there, right? So all we see is the person and the behavior and the mask. And you're like, what a selfish cunt. This person's doing this. He's stealing from the family. It's what we do, right?
Yes,
and we're like, we can't handle it. So the whole process is being able to see past the mask, right? So and this comes back down to once as a society, we understand that every addict has fighting an internal battle that is horrible, right? They're fighting an internal battle that's horrible. And it might look like they don't give a shit on the surface and these behaviors are unacceptable. Underneath that is just this soul in just so much pain. Right now, the group belief isn't that, right? But once the group belief does become that, then all of a sudden kids that grow up, we start to adopt that group belief and we start to see addicts in a different light, which means there's less stigma, which means addict will come forward and be more open and get help sooner, right? But right now it's still very much judgment based. There's this story of a tribe. Where were they? It's just a beautiful story that illustrates this. I can't remember where it is. There's this tribe in Africa, I think, somewhere. And basically when a baby's born in the tribe, they have a lady, I don't know if it's a shaman or what, but what they do, they tune in and they create a song for this child before it's born. It's a unique song. Every baby has a different song. And it's called their soul song. And so when the baby's born, the whole tribe gets around and they sing the soul song. And it's just this beautiful, beautiful moment. And what happens in the tribe, whenever one of the tribe members does something wrong, so they might stray off, they might do something violent, they might go against someone, whatever it is, they do something really bad. Instead of putting them in a cage, the whole tribe gets around them, sits around them and sings their soul song to them to remind them who they really are, right? Now, that is I know. It's a very different way of dealing with wrong behavior than what we do in our culture. Because what we do is we say, that was horrible, let's put you in a cage for a while so you can think about what you've done. Yeah. Whereas this tribe is like, no, let us remind you who you really are behind the mask and behind the behavior. That's how people get better. That's how, when people reconnect to their soul, whatever you want to call it, soul, spirit, true self, whatever it is, right? Whenever we reconnect to that, then all of a sudden we don't need to use drugs. Yeah. Or our drug use slowly gets less and less and less. Yeah. And if we want to talk about, the alternatives to the drug war, and once again, you'll know this from reading those books that you've read, places like Portugal, places like Switzerland, it's not like we have to have a philosophical chat about what other options look like. There's other countries that have been doing it for over a decade now, and the results are in. Portugal decriminalized drugs. Switzerland I think it's Geneva, legalized heroin. So let's talk about the difference between those, right? Mm-hmm. So decriminalization means that you cannot get arrested for possessing any type of illegal drug. Okay, so it's not legal. You still, if you want to go get drugs, you still have to go and get it from a drug dealer or someone not of legal means. But basically, if you get picked up and you just have a quantity that's just of personal amount, you're not going to traffic it, then you just get maybe a warning, maybe a fine, small fine, but you will not have any issues with criminal records, jail, anything like that. Okay, Portugal been doing that for over 15 years now, I think. Basically, rates of addiction, rates of overdose, rates of crime on the streets, everything has come down, right? And at the time when they were trying to, can you imagine in Australia trying to pass this bill? I'm like, man, it just would not happen, right? But Portugal were in serious problems. They had such a heroin issue before this. They were. It's kind of like, I'm just thinking now, it's like an addict finding rock bottom, but a country hitting rock bottom. Yeah, it's like that moment where things are so drastic that you're like, we're going to have to make some sort of radical change here, because their heroin use was just astronomical at that point. So they made the decision to, decriminalize all drugs. And the people who were very much against that decision, they've been asked since, and they said we would never go back to the way it was. We would never go back to the the criminalization model. Yeah. So even the people who were very much against it and have seen the results, right? So that's decriminalization, which means that the money spent on, because they decided they wanted to make it a health concern. It's not a criminal concern, but it's a health concern. So the money that they used to criminalize and put people on jail and do bus or whatever it was, all that money that was saved is now going into helping people get rehabilitated and try and get back on their feet. Yeah, makes sense, right, Tom? Does that make sense?
Totally. Right. I think so.
Right. And that's the thing. It's been happening for 15 years, and the people say we don't want to go back to the way it was. We want this decriminalization because it's working. Now, legalization is another step. So legalization means you can. So right now in the US, they're going through this with marijuana, right? It's like, okay, we marijuana for medicinal purposes was originally, so you need a special script from your doctor in certain states and you could get it. And now legalization means you can go to your corner shop and you can buy marijuana, gummies, whatever it was. And legalization, what they did in Switzerland, so they did it for heroin, because once again, they had a giant heroin problem, like HIV was rabid, overdoses were rabid. So you can go to a safe place, a heroin clinic, whatever you would call it, and basically you get free heroin, right? And it's pharmaceutical grade heroin, right? So many issues get run into with overdoses on heroin because you don't know how pure it is. You can get 30% pure heroin, 60, 90, you just don't know. If you're getting 100% pure heroin every time, you know exactly what dose you need. Because here's the thing. Every drug addict doesn't want to take too much. Yeah, we have this idea in our head of a drug addict, just more drugs, more drugs, more drugs. It's like we want to take enough to feel high or feel normal or feel whatever it is. We don't want to take so much that we're going to overdose. So you offer heroin addicts free pharmaceutical grade heroin. They've had 0 overdoses on heroin on that legal heroin, right? 0, and it's been like 10 years or more. Crazy. So what happens, you get clean needles, you get pharmaceutical grade heroin, you get a shower, there's a bed, you can go there. You're not forced to at all. But if you want to, you can sit down with a social worker and they can try and work out maybe how you can get employment or get housing or that kind of thing. Right? Once again, makes complete sense. And what's happening is that they're finding, I think, when they originally opened the place, it's a very, very low percentage. I can't remember now. I'd have to look it up, Tom, but it's a very low percentage of the same people still coming, which means the majority of people who have been there originally have actually got their shit together and got a job and have actually moved on, right? Because they had the help that they need, right? Normally, if I go somewhere and use heroin, then I would get, in trouble with the law. I'm trying to do it secretly. It's been cut by a dealer because they're trying to make more profit. Here, I'm getting the drug that I want. It's pure. I can go whenever I want. I can go then see a social worker, get the help to try and get my life in order. And it's having fantastic results as well. So that's two examples, decriminalisation and legalisation, which are a far better option than the war that we're waging at the minute.